You need to watch this if you crave chills down your spine. Welcome to Soul Studios. Here, true crime meets the unknown. Suspense lurks in every shadow, and supernatural forces whisper from the dark. We craft chilling, edge-of-your-seat short stories inspired by the eerie, the unexplained, and the most haunting mysteries. 3 new stories drop every week, each one darker than the last. Are you ready to step inside? Subscribe now before the next story finds you.
Have you ever felt uneasy walking through an empty place at night? In tonight's chilling true account, a night security guard working at a popular football stadium begins noticing something unsettling: a lone spectator sitting motionless high in the empty stands. Each night, the figure mysteriously moves closer, turning a routine patrol into a waking nightmare filled with dread and unanswered questions. What does this figure want, and why can't anyone else see it? If you enjoy real, spine-tingling horror stories that will haunt your thoughts long after they're over, hit subscribe and join us at Soul Studios for more chilling tales. And remember, sometimes when the crowds leave, something else takes their place. Editor's note: the following story is a real account. Names and locations have been changed for privacy. I work as a night security guard at a football stadium I'll call Redfield Stadium. It's a mid-sized college venue in a quiet town. Most nights my shift is uneventful. I walk the empty concourses and stands, make sure all gates are locked, and occasionally shoo away a stray cat. An empty stadium at midnight can be eerie, but after a few months I found a strange peace in the solitude. One Tuesday just after midnight, I started my rounds as usual. The floodlights were off, so the field was lit only by a half moon and a few dim emergency lamps. The air was cold and carried the smell of damp grass and stale popcorn from last weekend's game. Everything felt normal, until I saw the figure. I was crossing the 50-yard line when I spotted a lone figure seated high up in the stands near the press box. They sat completely still. I blinked hard, thinking it must be a trick of the light. The place was supposed to be empty, yet I clearly saw a human silhouette against the rows of vacant bleachers, as still as a statue. A chill prickled the back of my neck. I cupped my hands and shouted, "Hello, the stadium's closed." My voice echoed into the dark. No response, not a stir. Dutifully, I forced myself to investigate. I jogged up the nearest stairway, flashlight in hand. My boots echoed on the metal steps. At the top row, my breath was clouding in the cold as I swept my light over the seats where I'd seen the person. Nobody. The spot was empty. I swung the beam around in confusion, seeing nothing but silent, empty rows. A lone food wrapper skittered across the aisle in a gust of wind, making me flinch. There was no sign of anyone. I radioed my co-worker Mike, the only other guard on duty in the control room. He checked the feeds and said he saw nothing but empty seats. "Probably just shadows," he said gently. I muttered agreement and tried to shake it off. But as I descended the steps, a gnawing unease clung to me. I kept glancing back at the dark bleachers, half expecting to see that figure again. The next night, I came in determined not to let my imagination get the better of me. I even joked with my wife that morning about seeing ghosts at the stadium. She told me I seriously needed more sleep. Maybe she was right. Just past midnight on Wednesday, a fog drifted through the bleachers. A lone floodlight at the south gate buzzed and flickered, painting moving shadows in the mist. I was walking along the sideline when I froze, heart leaping into my throat. The figure was back. This time the spectator sat about halfway up the stands at midfield, definitely closer than before. In the hazy glow I could make out the hood of a dark jacket. I couldn't see any face, but I felt unseen eyes boring into me. The figure was unmistakable, sitting unnaturally still in that sea of empty seats. I blinked and rubbed my eyes, but the person was still there. Hands shaking, I radioed Mike, trying to keep my voice calm. "Mike, check camera 3, section C. Do you see anyone?" He came back after a few seconds, puzzled. "I don't see anyone. It's empty." Dread washed over me. I was staring directly at someone that the cameras couldn't see. My mouth went dry. I refused to just stand by this time. I sprinted through the nearest tunnel and up into the stands, determined to confront whatever it was. As I clambered up the steps towards Section C, I heard a faint shuffle, like someone quickly moving out of sight. "Security! Show yourself!" I called, my voice bouncing around the cavernous stands. I reached the row where the figure had been, empty. But one plastic seat was still down, as if it had been occupied moments ago. Most others around it were flipped up. My pulse was roaring in my ears. They had vanished again. I returned to the office badly shaken. Mike watched me on the monitors jogging around up there, but he never saw the person I was chasing. He gave a nervous chuckle. "Maybe you really did see old Mr. Thompson's ghost," he said quietly. I knew the name, a lifelong fan who had died of a heart attack in these stands last year. The thought sent an icy chill through me. I suddenly remembered reading about how he collapsed celebrating a big win and never got to go home. As if on cue, right then Mike's phone rang with an emergency. His teenage son had been in a car accident on the highway that night. Thankfully, the boy would recover. Mike apologized and rushed out, terrified and in a hurry. I was left alone to finish the shift with my heart in my throat. It felt like that strange presence brought misfortune in its wake. Every creak of the stadium made me jump. I spent the last hours until dawn with all the lights on, clutching my radio and praying I wouldn't see that lonely spectator again. By the third night, I was exhausted and on edge. I almost called in sick, but a part of me needed answers. It was Friday, and a storm was brewing. The sky was black and boiling with thunderclouds as I made my rounds. Lightning occasionally flickered, casting giant, twisted shadows of the grandstand across the field. About an hour into my patrol, a heavy rain began to fall. Wind howled through the aisle tunnels. That's when I saw him on the field. A jagged flash of lightning revealed the figure standing at the 50-yard line on the wet turf. He was out of the stands entirely now, much closer than ever. In the brief illumination I saw he faced the empty bleachers, head tilted upward as if watching an invisible crowd. I felt a surge of fear and something like anger. This thing was challenging me on my own field. I stepped out onto the grass, adrenaline overriding my terror. "Hey!" I yelled into the storm, though the word came out strangled. My voice was lost in the wind and rain. The figure did not budge. He just stood there, silhouetted by another flicker of lightning. Rain dripped off the brim of a faded cap on his head. I closed the distance to maybe 10 yards, my flashlight beam unsteady on his back. Slowly, the figure turned to face me. Another lightning bolt split the sky, and I saw him clearly at last. It was an older man. His face was ashen grey, skin stretched taut. His eyes were cloudy, milky white, eyes that seemed dead. And yet, behind that lifeless gaze, there was a profound sadness. His mouth opened as if he were trying to say something. In the raspy gust of wind, I swore I heard a faint, choking whisper. It almost sounded like help, or maybe hope. I couldn't be sure over the rain. A wave of terror crashed over me. My mind was screaming to run, but I stood riveted. I knew, without a doubt, I was face to face with Mr. Thompson's ghost, the man who never left his favourite seat, even after death. Lightning struck somewhere very close with a blinding flash and an earth-shaking crack of thunder. I threw my arms up instinctively. For one stunned second, the whole stadium lit up pure white, and I felt the hairs on my arms stand on end. Then everything went completely, utterly dark as the lights and cameras all died at once. I blinked spots from my vision. He was gone. The rain fell in sheets on an empty field. The figure had vanished as if he had never been there. I don't even recall running, but the next thing I knew I was inside the stadium offices, drenched and gasping for breath. I must have screamed or radioed for help, because the manager and a couple of staff came rushing out to find me. I'm sure I sounded insane, raving about a man on the field who kept disappearing. There was no evidence of anyone. In fact, a review of the security footage later showed nothing but me out there in the storm, shouting at empty air. I quit that job the very next morning. I couldn't get the image of those dead, sorrowful eyes out of my head. To this day, I wonder what he wanted. Was he trying to communicate? To finish watching one last game? Or was he a restless soul, clinging to the place he loved most? I know I'll probably never get those answers. What I do know is that I never want to experience anything like that again. I still have nightmares about the spectator in the stands. So take my advice. If you ever find yourself alone in an empty stadium and you spot a solitary figure sitting far up in the bleachers, do not approach them. Some spectators, it seems, never truly leave, and some ghosts only let you see them when they want to be seen. Some stories fade with the night, but this one stayed with me long after I left Redfield Stadium behind. Whatever haunted those stands wasn't just a shadow or a trick of the mind. It was something real, and it was watching. If you ever feel eyes on you in an empty place, trust your instincts. Some spectators watch forever.
Every story has an end, but here, the mysteries never stop. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey into the unknown. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there's plenty more waiting for you. We drop 3 new stories every week, so if you crave suspense, the unexplained, and the downright chilling, make sure you're subscribed and ready for what's next. Until then, keep your lights on, your doors locked, and remember, some stories stay with you long after they're told.